This is one of those nice things about the retro as opposed to the other models, and that is the fact that on the other models the sidecar frame is up higher and out further and sits about here, which means in order to do head work you have to either remove the sidecar completely, or the other thing you can do, which is what I ended up doing later on, is you jack up the sidecar frame and you remove the sidecar wheel, and then you unbolt from here and here, and you pull those away and you just drop the sidecar down, and then you could get at the head without having to dismantle the whole thing. But yeah, so tub's off. I'm going to go to the hardware store today as well as the auto parts store and buy different fasteners. I'm going to use lock nuts and wing nuts, I think, to hold it in place so that I don't need to put a wrench on it every time I need to do this. And then, of course, next time I'll put both of these back on instead of just the one. And then that's the sidecar windshield over there, which will go right there, and it will all be good. Alright, so that's that for now. Alright, I messed this up the last time, so now I'm trying to do it with the little LED back so that I can actually see what I'm filming. Alright, so these are the little pads that the nose of the sidecar sits down on top of. And then these brackets sit up from below like that, with the bolts going through the bottom of the sidecar and then locking down. And originally, these here are the fasteners that went through the bottom of the sidecar here. This goes through the bottom of that clamp, and then the stud goes up through a hole in the sidecar floor, and then this nut clamps it down. And for right here, that's not all that hard to get to, trying to loosen them up and remove them, which you have to remove the tub to work on the valves. But this side, trying to get the Allen wrench on here while trying to reach inside the sidecar and across and getting a wrench on the nut to try to break it loose with your left hand while your right hand's under here holding the Allen wrench is a supreme pain in the ass. So the last time I put this back together again, I left this clamp off completely. And then earlier today I was struggling to get this one free because it's not the best method. It's hard to keep the Allen inside of this little screw head or bolt head, as it were, and then also to keep the wrench on that nut, especially since it's a nylon lock nut, which is important, you know, so it doesn't like fall off on the road. Although the weight of the person in the car, plus those two tail clamps that go up through the trunk, and those rubber, basically shock absorbers, give some sense of dampening. While that shock over here on the wheel also gives a dampening effect. But the point is that this is no good. Also, when you're trying to loosen it once it's sort of free enough, trying to get your fingers on that head of the bolt while it's underneath to start turning it free while undoing this is it's painfully, unfortunately, poorly thought out. So earlier today, and I said it wrong earlier today while I was making the video. I said I was going to get a lock nut and a wing nut. And what I meant to say was I was going to get lock washers and wing nuts. So this is what I've done. I've gotten new bolts that have a bigger head on them, something that you can easily get your fingers grabbed around. And then, Jesus, sorry, it's pretty late at night now. And then lock washers and wing nuts. So these will come up through the floor the same way, but instead of having a little nut on top, it will be the wing nuts. So I won't have to get a wrench in there. All I'll have to do is loosen this with my hand while having a Allen on the head of the bolt for a very short period of time, just enough to break it free, and then just hold it in place, which will be easy to do given how big that head is. You can hold it nice and tight between two fingers, and then just, spin it loose. And that will make removing the brackets that hold the front of the tub down a hell of a lot easier, which makes me very, very, very happy. Because, as I said, you have to take the tub off every time you want to adjust the valves, and so that I don't eat any more push rods, I'm going to check the valves every 1,500 miles, which is slight overkill, but I don't want to eat any more push rods, so that's what we'll do. This bike is significantly more modern and better than the old 650s I had, but it's still essentially 1970s technology with modern electronics and stuff. So I have to care for it a little bit more closely than I have been the past few years. If I had been treating this bike like a 1970s motorcycle as opposed to a 2012 motorcycle, I never would have eaten that push rod. I would have been checking the valves much more frequently than I have been. So it's my fault, and this is going to help prevent that from ever happening again, in the sense that one of the things that has kept me from checking the valves is the fact that, for me, having such little muscle mass at the moment and being in pain all the time and all of that shit, pulling this tub off is an immense pain in the ass. And this is going to make it so much easier. So yeah, that's that update.